Hey there crafter, I'm going to show you a little trick today to make really sturdy handles for your crochet bags. Now crochet, unfortunately, it kind of stretches over time because it's fabric. This has some stretch to it. But I'm going to show you a way to make some sturdy handles that won't give out, they won't stretch out over time. And the simple trick is because we put a little bit of tubing inside of there. You may have seen these handles in my previous video about turning crochet squares into bags. And so in this video, I'm going to show how I make and then add the second handle for this bag. And I hope you guys enjoy. So let's get into it. I'm using some Red Heart Super Saver and a 5mm hook. I'm going to create a slip knot and put that onto my hook. And then the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to chain, and however long I chain is going to be about the length of the handle. The handle will kind of be a little bit longer, but part of that distance will be sewn to the side of the bag. So chain about how long you want your handles to be. I'm going to match this to the length of my first handle, and I did a chain of 44 for my first handle, so I'm going to do this one the same way. But if you want a longer handle or a shorter handle, just change how many stitches you chain. So I've created my chain that is 44 stitches long, and now we're going to start working our handle. Now the handle essentially is going to be a giant oval, so we're going to work down both sides of our chain. Now initially I was working first down one side of the V and then back up the other side of the V, but I found I had a lot of gaps with that, so I'm going to show you what I did to avoid having gaps in the middle of my handle. So the first thing I need to do is chain one, and that's going to be my turning chain. And then I'm going to go to the second chain from my hook and work a single crochet. But instead of working in the side, I'm going to work in the back nub when I first go down the chain. So it's this piece right here on the back. Go underneath there and work a single crochet. So that is my first single crochet, and now I'm going to work single crochet all the way to the other end, putting one single crochet into the back nub of every chain stitch. So once I get down to the other end, I will have 44 single crochet. So here's what I've got so far. It's just 44 single crochet stitches worked on down the back nubs of our chain. And now it's time to work around the end and up the other side. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to find the other side of my chain. So I just worked in chain number 44 in the back nub, but this right here is the other side of the chain. And I'm going to work 2 single crochet in the other side of the chain. And I'm also going to kind of work over this tail just to get it out of the way. So 1 single crochet and 2 single crochet. And what you're going to find when you do that is really the opposite side of the chain on the end is the same as that chain that we just worked in. So another way of thinking about it is in the final chain in that back nub, work 3 single crochet. It's the same thing basically. So what this is we have this stitch right here, which was our 44th single crochet, then this extra stitch, which counts as like the end to get us around the corner, and then this stitch here, which is the third one in the same spot, counts as the single crochet on the opposite side of the chain. So that's good from there. And now on the way down, we're going to work 1 single crochet in the opposite side of every chain. So this is our first one here, but we've already worked in there, so we don't need to work here again. But I'll go to the next spot, right there, the opposite side of the chain, go through. Again, I'm still working over this tail piece, and in that spot, work a single crochet. So that's going to count as my second one down this side. This is my first one, this is my second one. Go to the next spot, again, opposite side of the chain from where we worked a moment ago, and work a single crochet. This will count as my third single crochet for going down the opposite side. This right here will be my 4th single crochet. And I'm going to work on down until I've worked 44 single crochet down the back side of my first row. So I've worked 44 single crochet down the underside of these single crochet stitches here. So now I'm kind of back where we started. The last thing I need to do is I need to put 1 more single crochet into the same stitch, this very first stitch here, and that's going to be the stitch that kind of sits on the end and gets us around the corner. So right there, and then to finish it up, I'm going to go to my very first stitch, insert under the top of that stitch, and work a slip stitch to join round 1. And I like to pull this nice and snug. So to recap round 1, what we did was I worked 44 single crochet down the back nub of my chain. Then in the 44th stitch, I stuck an extra single crochet, and then working in the other side of the chain, I worked 44 single crochet all the way down the other side, and then in the last stitch, I put an extra stitch. So in my case, I have 44 stitches on this side, 44 stitches on that side, plus an extra stitch here, and an extra stitch here. Now you might not have done a starting chain of 44, but the number of stitches you should end up with after round 1 is twice the number of your starting chain plus 2. So in my case, I have 2 times 44, which is 88, plus 2, which is 90. So I have 90 stitches for round 1. So now we get to round 2. I'm going to start by chaining 1, and in my first stitch, which is the same spot where I slip stitched the previous round, I'm going to work 2 single crochet into the same spot. So 1 and 2, so 2 single crochet. Then in the next 42 stitches, I'm going to work 1 single crochet. So this is 1, 2, 3, I'm going to go all the way on down, putting 1 single crochet in each of the next 42 stitches. Now, if you did a different number than 44, after you do 2 single crochet in your first stitch, you're going to work 1 single crochet all the way down for 2 less spaces than you started with. So in my case, I started with 44, so I'm going to work 1 single crochet in the next 42 stitches. If you started with 50 single crochet down your side, you're going to work 1 single crochet in the next 48 stitches. Alright, so I have worked 42 single crochet on down my side. So now what I'm going to do in each of the next 3 stitches is I'm going to work a single crochet increase. So in my next stitch, I'm going to put 2 single crochet in there. So this is 1 and 2. In my next stitch, work 2 single crochet. 1, 2. And in the third spot, work 2 single crochet. 1 and 2. And the reason we work 2 in those stitches is that gives us enough distance to get around the curve here of the end. Continuing on with round 2, I'm going to put 1 single crochet in each of the next 42 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, and all the way on until I've done 42 stitches. So now that I've worked 42 single crochet on down, I have just 2 stitches left here at the end, and in each of these 2 stitches I'm going to do a single crochet increase, which means I work 2 single crochet in each stitch. So this is 1 and 2 for this stitch, and then in my last stitch 2 single crochet. So 1 and 2 into the same spot. And now to finish up the round, I'm going to find this first single crochet, insert underneath the top there, yarn over and pull through everything to slip stitch the round. And again, I like to pull that nice and snug after I do that slip stitch, and then I'm going to fasten off. Alright, so here's where we're at on this project so far. We have the first handle already attached to our bag, and we're going to turn this handle into something that looks like this. So again, the trick is I put some kind of tubing on the inside here. Let me show you what I'm using. I have this tubing stuff here that I'm storing in a copy tin, and this is from a clothesline my dad bought. He needed the retractable portion of the clothesline to make an anchor for his kayak. So anyways, this is the actual clothesline portion of it, and because I'm a crafter / hoarder, I saved this. So this is what I'm going to be using, but chances are you probably don't have a sturdy clothesline that you have saved. So some more readily available options, but first of all, if you go to a hardware store, you can buy plastic tubing. Now this is really thick plastic tubing, but they make much thinner plastic tubing that's more, this size. And it's not too expensive, it's usually less than $1 for a yard or so. And you of course don't need the highest quality tubing for this. I've seen this at like small local hardware stores. I would assume Lowe's and Home Depot, places like that also carry piping, so that's an option. Another option is to use sturdy cotton rope or maybe like macrame rope to go in the center of your handle to prevent it from stretching out. If you go with rope, the important thing is to pick rope that isn't going to stretch. This clothesline or this tubing, they're not going to stretch because they're made out of plastic. So just pick something somewhat sturdy that you can curve into a handle shape and won't stretch. But once you have your tubing, you need to cut a section of tubing to go in your handle. Now you don't want the tubing to be as long as your handle because at the ends we're not going to have tubing under there. So the tubing starts here and ends here, but there's a little bit of extra on the crochet handle portion. So I'm going to measure from a little ways above the end down to the other side, and I'll cut it probably about here. Now, I did measure the length for my first handle, so I am going to measure this to make them match. So the last handle was just over 11 inches. That brings us to right about here. And that ought to do it. So now that we have our crochet handle piece and our tubing, we're going to want to get out a tapestry needle, and we're going to take our yarn, that is the color of our handle, and cut a nice long section and thread it onto the needle. So let's take a look at our handle. Now this does have kind of a back side and a front side. Honestly, just go with whichever side you think looks nicer for going on the outside. But I'm going to make this be the inside. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the end and find kind of my center two stitches. So in my case, it's these two right here on the end. And I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 on either side. In those stitches, I'm not going to sew together. So in stitch 5 on either side, basically leave 8 blank in the middle and go to stitch number 5 on either side. I'm going to sew those two together. So now that I know what those are, flipping it back over, I'm going to sew up from the underside under stitch 5 on one side, pull my slack on through, go to stitch 5 on the other side, and go out through that. Pull my slack on through, and then I'm going to take this and take my tail and tie a couple knots here. So tie a knot and cinch that right up, tie another knot, and this tail that we're left with we'll just put to the inside of the handle. I'm going to take my tubing and place it kind of right here, and now we're ready to sew this close. So I just went through those two stitches. I'm going to go to the next stitch on the right side and work from right to left through that stitch, then go to the next stitch on the left side and again go right to left through that stitch, pull my slack on through and try not to get it all tangled up, and cinch it tight. Go down a stitch, so stitch on the right, a stitch on the left, go through both of them, and pull the slack on through, cinch it up. And again, this whole time I'm holding the tubing to the center. Next stitch on the right, next stitch on the left, and sew it closed. And I am going to repeat this down the entire length of my handle until I have 8 stitches left. So just like we left 8 stitches blank on the starting end, we're going to leave 8 stitches unsewn at the other end. So I've whip stitched on down and I have 8 stitches left, and I'm going to kind of come through right here just to pull this over a little more. But now I've got something that looks a little bit like this, and now it's time to attach it to the bag. So with my bag, because of the way it's designed, I'm going to attach the handles kind of here and here. And since I already have this tail piece right here, I'm going to use this to sew this end on. So to sew this on, I'm basically going to go all the way around this circle. So let's start by going down through the bag, kind of where our yarn is. And then I'm going to come up through the bag and aim for underneath this first stitch here. And then I'll go down through this next stitch and then also through the bag, just wherever it lines up on the bag. And then up through the next stitch. Down through the next stitch, and I'm just going to stitch this all the way around. So now I've gone all the way around the outer edge of stitches, and now I'm going to stitch on across the center. So I'm on the back side, so I'm going to come up just a little bit over, and then down a little ways to the side, and then on up a little more to the right. and back down right around where we started. So that's in place pretty well, so I'll flip it over onto the back side, and I'm going to come up to some of this orange stitching here and pull it on through, and then I'm going to go around this and tie a couple knots. There's nothing fancy with how I'm tying these knots. I'm just trying to be secure so that way this doesn't unravel and our handle is securely fastened. And then once that's secure, I'm going to take my needle and thread it on up through the inside of my handle and then come out the handle a little further down. Pull the thread on through and trim the excess. So one side's connected, we've just got one more side to go to finish up this bag. And here is the handle completely attached. So I hope y'all enjoyed this tutorial on a way to make very strong and sturdy crochet bag handles that won't stretch out over time. Happy crafting!